Hawkeyes. Welcome back to the UI Sports SalesCast, presented by the University of Iowa Sport and Rec Management Program. My name is Charlie Taylor, and I'm your host as we talk ticket sales and revenue generation with sports industry executives from around the country. The UI Sports SalesCast gives our students timely conversations covering multiple topics in revenue generation to help them prepare for their sports careers. Today, I'm joined by a great friend, Kyle McGuire, Senior Director of Ticket Sales and Service at The Ohio State University with Learfield Amplify. Kyle has an extensive background in ticket sales. As a proud graduate of Ohio University, he has had stops with the Cincinnati Reds, the University of Pittsburgh, YMCA of Greater Indianapolis, Bowling Green State University, and then came on board as the general manager with us with Hawkeye Ticket Solutions in about January of 2019. Kyle now oversees ticket sales and service for one of, if not the largest ticketed athletics department in the country, Ohio State. He has 9 ticketed sports, and as we know, in some of the largest sports venues in the world, including over 100,000 seats at Ohio Stadium. So Kyle, one, thanks for the time. I know you're in renewals, you're knocking stuff out. Thanks for giving us some time today. And how are things in Columbus, Ohio?
Oh, no, I appreciate it. And I'm glad and happy to be a part of this. And it's going really well. Outside of a little Ohio spring weather behind me, I think it looks like sunlight, but it's not real sunlight. So, but everything's going really well.
Hey, let's jump right in. So, one of the things that we worked on together at Iowa was working to sell our products year round, our tickets and our sports, kind of the concept of you never stop selling. Can you give our students some background to what that looks like at Ohio State, looks like in your practice, and the benefits that you get around never stop selling?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of different benefits to it, and it does protect you from some things. So, we talked when I got to Iowa the importance of creating longer runways for sales to create more opportunity for your sales reps, those folks that are looking to sell tickets for you. But so what we do, and we've done everywhere that I've been, is we've tried to accelerate timelines. And when you look at something like football, for instance, you're in a season from September to December, January, if you're playing into the playoffs, but you want to make sure that you're selling year round for those particular sports, especially when most athletic departments evolve and revolve around the revenue streams that are coming through football. So something we do at Ohio State, I know we started doing at Iowa when we were there in 2019 and moving forward, was to launch deposits, launch renewals within the season that's actually happening. And what that does for you is it enables you to sell on the what ifs and not the what is. So if things aren't going particularly well, you really don't know it until it's kind of already there. So you're able to create that longer runway. You have deposits launched, you're having conversations on renewals, and you're collecting dollars. So as you get into those early January, February months, you're chasing new dollars, not old dollars.
It just rolls into itself. Is that a fair assessment? And then there's also, I would have to guess that over a course of time, fans start to expect that, right? No matter what's going on in the season, they just know the time is coming and they anticipate that. So let's be real, they start budgeting for it. Is that correct?
No, absolutely. And I think one of the cool things that a lot of universities are doing now is when they implement this new idea of selling year round, we won't change some of the different timelines that are in effect. Like the renewal deadline may not change for the first couple of years. We may not even touch that. So, we're launching in November in comparison to what might have been January, February, but the deadline's still the end of March. So our fan base just has a little bit more time to get to know it. But hey, if someone wants to raise their hand and say, hey, I want to make my payment on my season tickets for next year in November, we shouldn't stop them. Let's let them do that.
And how much does that go into, you're in the middle of one fall or, one basketball season, let's say. The team's on a roll. You're halfway through the season. Do you start asking then when people are excited for it? Is there the opportunity that I can get on board for next year and guarantee my seats in this concept of never stop selling?
No, absolutely. I think you have to look at the certain parameters that could either regress what you're trying to do or even improve upon what you're trying to do. So, like I said, using football with it being the largest sport that we have here, we know we're going to start off with a couple of non-conference games, and we know we'll probably come out of the gates with a couple of wins. So we typically will launch renewals and deposit based on those wins. We know that we're kind of on a high. There's not a lot of risk factor in launching on that, but we do try to play on some of those successes that we're currently seeing. And if things aren't necessarily going well, we saw this a little bit with women's basketball. We had some struggles where we lost 6, 7, 8 games in a row. We did put a little bit of a pause on it until we got back on track in order to launch. But we definitely kind of look at those factors when we're looking at when we're going to.
Emotion's important, right? Yeah. So let's jump to the next one. Man, you oversee a lot. You've got a large staff. Give our students an idea at your management style. You've got so much responsibility to revenue and getting butts and seats and getting the attendance there. Every coach wants to see a full building. Everybody wants to see it. It changes the landscape of the experience for the student athletes. So not only how do you manage your staff, but I also know that a lot of it is how do you manage the processes it takes to move that much inventory every season in all of your programs. So really two things there. Your management style, managing the staff, and then the process.
Yeah, I'll start with the management style. I kind of sense that I'm more of a hybrid manager because I have a firm belief that you manage to the person, not the job. And specifically when you have a staff where I've got 8 full-time sellers here, I'm involved with a lot of our student athlete internship programs and a lot of our student training. So you kind of have to learn who the person is, what their personality is. There's not a cookie cutter approach to management. So once you get to know the person and how they work, how they function best, then you start to put a plan together as to what and how you maximize what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. One of the things that I do anywhere that I've started is before I even start, I make sure that I reach out. I have a one-on-one conversation with each of the individuals going to be reporting to me. But more importantly, I want to get the buy-in to the program that I'm going to bring, and then the buy-in of their program from a professional and a personal growth. So something I've always done from a management aspect is I always put together a 3-month, a 6-month, a 1-year, a 3-year, and a 5-year plan, both professionally and personally, on the individuals that are going to be reporting to me. And what that does is it creates accountability both ways. We can structure how we're doing our jobs in order to maximize what the university needs, on top of growing them from a personal and professional. And then if I'm not doing the things that we're supposed to be doing on a monthly basis, we can catch it early enough to correct it and make sure that we're putting them in the position to be successful. In terms, as you mentioned kind of in the intro here, we've got 9 ticketed sports, and a lot of my job, I started here in April coming from Iowa. And as you know, Charlie, we built up kind of what that was based on what the university's needs were. And we've done a very similar thing over the last year. And it's crazy to think that I've been here for a year. It doesn't seem that way, but over the last year, we've built up our team to work and to function into what exactly the university needs. So when you're looking at different things, we know that there are certain money that's going to come in from a football renewal. We know that certain attachments are things that are naturally going to come in. But what I've done is I've put together a team that has functionality in certain aspects. So we do have people that are focused primarily on your women's gymnastics, on your volleyballs, on your women's basketball. We have people that are focused primarily on retention and renewals and chasing down those dollars from past years. So you really have to structure the team that you have in place, and then you obviously start to build on that. And as we go through into years 2 and year 3, there's going to be some tweaks and changes that we make depending on where we are from a university level. But ultimately, everyone's got to have the same goal and the same buy-in towards that goal in order to reach it. And I think that's the most important thing. And caring about people, you truly have to care about what you're doing and who you're doing it with in order to reach those.
Sounds like a big key is both on the personal level with those individual plans for someone's career, and then both with the process, the institution, within your own 4 walls, expectation management. That seems to be. Is it fair to kind of sum up that to say all that work goes into managing expectations, so not only you can meet them but exceed them?
Oh, absolutely. I think from our time, at Iowa together, I'm a very transparent person. I believe everybody needs to be in the know as to what we're trying to do. And obviously if there's, not the expectations, or they're not understood, or maybe they're not clear, then everybody's kind of, vying for that one goal that maybe we don't even know what it is. So I think that if you don't have those expectations set, and that's something that we clearly lay out, I meet on a biweekly basis on an individual level, and then on the other weeks that we're not meeting at an individual level, I'm meeting on a team level. So where we know on a week by week exactly what our goals are, what we're trying to achieve, and how we're going to get there. But I think the transparency and having those clear, level-headed expectations of what I need to happen and we need to happen as a team, then that's what leads us to success.
Well, that kind of leads into the next one. And again, another two-parter for you, objections. And, one, our students are working right now, or will be getting into how do you battle through objections? But I think there's also a real big key, not only that COVID has taught us in ticket sales, but even before that, how do you battle through rejection, right? If you're a ticket salesperson and you need to make 80 calls a day, and you know that what percentage of those are going to be no's, and you do that every day and every day, how do the best ticket salespeople both work through objections on the phone? And then the second part of that, more on the health side for your teams, you sitting down, having plans, getting to know people personally. How do you help your staff or other staffs? What tips can you give to our students, not only overcoming objections, but dealing with the health of rejection in the ticket sales industry?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And as you mentioned, you're going to get a lot more no's than you do yeses in this industry. That's just part of the business and anything you're selling. So, you definitely need to learn to accept it and be able to combat those things. The big thing for me is to explain to folks that may be getting into this industry that we do have KPIs that we look for that measure basically success and kind of like the efforts that are going into that success. And you're going to make 80 to 100 calls a day from a rep standpoint. But the person on the other line is only going to get one call from you. So if you let that stuff carry over from a bad phone call, then you're going to have another bad phone call. They're going to have a bad experience. So, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the other folks on the other line and say, look, they're going to get one call. I need it to be my best. So whether that be a reset, walking around, we're at our Schottenstein Center here. So we do have the basketball arena, and I go take a lap, go get away from your desk, step away, go out for lunch. Do those things because the negative reflection will carry forward. And I compare it a lot, ironically, to like a cornerback in football. If a corner gets burned by our wide receiver and they let that marinate and sit in their head, guess what happens the next time? It happens again, and it happens again, and it happens again. But if you look at most corners, like in the NFL, or at a high level collegiate, they have short-term memory where they may get burned, but they still think they're the best player on the field the next play. So I look at those things where you have to be able to handle that rejection, go through that. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can combat rejection and go through like the objectives. And, one of them that we use primarily here is the feel, felt, found method. One of the benefits of making 80 to 100 calls is you're probably going to have heard it before. So you have that knowledge and some of that experience as to what's happened before. So, I completely understand how you feel. Others have found that they felt the same way. And then this is what we can do to correct that. So I think it's using that. And then I had a trainer by the name of Charlie Chisloggy, probably 12 years ago when I was with the Reds, who told me to be comfortable with the sound of silence during a conversation and letting them marinate, because they may talk themselves through an objection, which is ironic to say, but sometimes if you let somebody sit and kind of marinate in that silence, they go, you know what, maybe it makes sense. But I think there's a lot of different ways. And then, part of handling the mental side of the job, and 80 to 100 can be taxing. I've been fortunate enough that I actually experienced that for a couple of years as a rep, where I was making the 80 to 100. It's tiered off. I don't make as many calls anymore, but I'm willing to get on the phone. And I think as a manager, you have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to jump on the phone with everybody. Don't expect somebody to do something you're not willing to do. And then at the same time, you create a culture that's comfortable. So if there is somebody that has something going on from a mentality standpoint to where the phones just aren't happening, I would rather somebody come to me at noon and say, you know what, Kyle, today's just not my day. And I'll have them go home, reset, come back in tomorrow fresh and redo it, because I would rather have a good 3 or 4 hours of work than a bad 8 hours.
And a lot of great stuff in there, and thanks for that. I mean, and a lot to kind of process as I'm thinking through it. But I just go back to the best teams are the ones who really care about each other, right? And ticket sales can be, It is who's going to be number one on the board, right? Who's going to ring the bell the most amount of times. But, it can be a massively rewarding career, one that's very lucrative. But also you get that shot of dopamine when you make the sale, when you overcome, when you finally have the skills built up to ask for a good chunk of change, or you end up as the top person on the sales board. And that's what drives a lot of people in our industry. So, man, the way you're approaching it is awesome. And I hope, our students can kind of look at that and that's that's the type of atmosphere environment they want to jump into in their first tranche of their career, whatever it might be. So, let's jump into maybe the final question of the day, looking at talent. Nobody comes to Iowa to learn something they already want to know. They want to learn something they don't know, and they want to get a job, right? You want to pay off. I went to school for 4 years, and I got my first gig. And in our world, and sports is cool. I want to work in sports. First, really two parts here. One, first piece of advice you would give somebody trying to jump into the ticket sales industry, whether it's college or pro, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing is putting yourself out there, and getting to know and getting to meet as many people as possible in our industry. I think there are a lot of really, really, really good people in our industry that are willing to help anybody in their career, including myself. So, we have so many different tools nowadays. You have the ability to go on a website and find someone's direct email, somebody's direct phone number. You can go on LinkedIn and add them on there. But I think we don't have enough of those folks that are going out and building that database of people that they know and getting to know folks, asking the questions and doing that. So I think that's kind of the one piece there. The other piece would be volunteering. Get as much experience as you can in everything. It's going to help you down the long run. And the cool thing about sports is there is a lot of different avenues to get to a lot of different places in this industry. I know people that went into it as a salesperson and ended up in marketing. I know people that came into marketing and ended up in sponsorship. So I think if you can really get as much involvement as you can in those other realms and volunteering and getting experience, whether it be a day or a week or a couple weeks. I know UI does a really good job with some different things with the Super Bowl and some other events, volunteering for those things, but just get that experience because it's going to help you down the long run. And maybe you don't enter in the exact spot you want to be, but then kind of where you wanted to go and the directive. And then when you have a manager, you can say, hey, like, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. How do I get there? And you can start to put that plan together to get there.
Yeah, and that kind of great stuff there. But that lays into the next one. So to all of our students, Kyle just said he's got 8 positions and he's got a fantastic team. But I can tell you from experience, Kyle is working to shape his folks to someday sit in his chair or other chairs all across the country. So that means Kyle's going to have openings someday, or Kyle's going to know somebody who has openings someday. So Kyle, man, when you've got an opening, you're looking at the resume or you're looking for certain traits and skills from folks, besides the fact that they graduated from the University of Iowa, which obviously puts them right at the top. We all know that. You don't have to say it out loud, even though you went to Ohio U, that's okay. But what are you looking for when you're looking to hire folks?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier too, I'll kind of hit on this, and I try to find that next person that's going to roll into my chair because I always want to grow, and I'll use University of Iowa as an example before I answer that question. We have a leader in the Hawkeye Ticket Solutions now. His name's Chris Hirschberger. I'm sure he's going to be on, or has been on, but he started off as an account executive with us, and we were able to grow him into being the GM there, and now the director of ticket sales. So I definitely look at people, and when I bring them in, I'm not looking at it like, hey, I want you to be a rep for 2 years and then go somewhere else. I want to get you to where I want to be and you want to be. So I think that's really unique. But when I'm going through the process, and ironically, I'm getting ready to post another position here probably in the next couple of weeks. That'll be a May hire. So if there's some May graduates that are out there or whatever it may be, obviously reach out and connect with me. But I look for a couple of different things, and I don't necessarily look at like, hey, do they have experience? Do they not have experience? Because sometimes experience can be a bad thing. There may be some things that were trained in a way that need to be corrected, or some habits that are formed that we don't want. So, it's not always about what experience you have, but the biggest thing for me as I go through this is I look for a positive attitude. You have to have a personality that is able to tweak and meld to whatever you're actually talking through, and it shows through the phone. 95% of our communication is going to be through the phone. And if you're kind of just there to go through the motions, it's not going to show, and the consumer is going to feel that. You have to have the ability to carry a conversation. And that's because the conversation can go anywhere. One of the things that I stress here is, a sales call is a sales call until it becomes a conversation. And then you're really diving into something. I've sold many tickets and many different things when I was with the Y and partnerships and corporate deals that we talked for 45 minutes about absolutely nothing that had, involved what we were trying to sell. But you gain that information, and you can utilize that information to make your pitch, make your ask. So it's the ability to carry a conversation. But I think the most important thing for me is the ability to be self-driven. I don't micromanage. I believe in giving the tools for success and making sure that you have every avenue to be successful, but it's up to you. If you're not willing to make that call, to make that next call and make that next call, and to put in the work that it has to happen to be successful, then, you're not going to be somebody that I most likely will want on my team. And that starts with, the volunteering and showing that you want to be a part of this industry, because this industry is a lot of fun. It takes a little while to get through it. But I tell you, it is a ton of fun once you can get to a level where you fully are engulfed in what the sport industry is.
Fantastic advice, Kyle, and I know our students will really take that to heart. We're kind of wrapping up here today. I just want to throw it to you for the last word. Anything else for our students or for our community in general before we close out this edition of the SalesCast?
Yeah, I mentioned it before. There's a lot of good people in the industry that you can reach out to for advice on a personal level, professional level. I pride myself and hopefully can be that for each of you. So feel free. You can go on the website. You can shoot me an email. You can add me on LinkedIn. I'd be more than happy to have that conversation. If there's something of interest to you from a professional side, if there's a job and I have a connection, I'd be more than happy to help out as much as I can. But, ultimately, you've got good people at UI. I told Charlie I have a soft spot for UI. I'm still pulling for them in about every way, shape, or form, unless they're playing the Buckeyes. But, reach out, utilize me and utilize some of the folks that I know to be able to help you start off and to continue through your career. But I'm appreciative of everything that obviously Charlie has done, and I'm glad I was able to hop on this and hopefully help somebody else out.
Kyle, man, thanks a lot for that. Thanks for your information. It does mean a lot, and I appreciate you coming on, joining the SalesCast, helping us get this concept kicked off. Quick note to our students: if you are a UI Sport and Rec Management student, shoot me a line. Let us know who you'd like to hear from or the topics you'd like us to cover. We'll continue to work to get as many folks on in the industry as possible. As you all know, you can follow the UI Sports SalesCast at the official UI Sport and Rec Management YouTube page. As Kyle just gave you his information, you can follow us on LinkedIn. And with that, Kyle, man, thanks a lot. Have a great rest of the year. Good luck this fall. And we'll be watching Ohio State as much as we watch the Hawkeyes. So everybody, thanks for watching. We look forward to bringing you the next guest on the UI Sports SalesCast. As always, we'll see you then. And go Hawkeyes.